Hello. Is everyone awake? Smiling? Okay, before we get started, just want to make sure you're all in the right session. This is the Master Data in Minutes with Smart Mastering session. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping things, items. First of all, it goes without saying, cell phones off. Please double check. We wouldn't want that to happen. Then we'd all stare at you, and it would be very uncomfortable for all of us. So make sure that's off. If you haven't downloaded the mobile app already, please do so. Not only just to complete the survey, but if you're here with colleagues and you're attending different sessions, you can reach each other through the app and connect that way as well. And also, there's the contest. At 5 this evening is the Gaming Evolution Party, which is going to be in the Grand Ballroom. We would like to see everyone there. And finally, one-on-one appointments with experts. Excuse me. We're fortunate to be, our corporate office is close to this hotel, so we have all of our technical folks here. They're experts and they're passionate about the product and they're dying to answer your questions. So if you'd like to set up a one-on-one meeting with an expert, just go, excuse me, down the hall here to your right, and there's a desk set up and it has a big old sign that says one-on-one appointments, and make an appointment with an expert. Okay, I'm going to turn it over now, excuse me, to Damon Feldman, who is our Director of Solutions, and to Casey, Alderetti.
Yeah.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, that's great.
And I apologize, I've completely spaced your title.
I'm a senior product manager.
I apologize. There you go.
Okay. Welcome to Master Data in Minutes with Smart Mastering. I'm Casey Alderetti. I'm a product manager at MarkLogic. And today, Damon and I are going to try to challenge the way that you think about MDM. And so this is kind of putting it into a MarkLogic context. We have a little bit of a different approach to MDM, and you're going to see Smart Mastering as the way that we're encapsulating that into the product. At MarkLogic, I'm a product manager. I've been here for 4 years, and I work on different ways that developers and architects engage with the MarkLogic product through things like the Data Hub framework, through query interfaces like the Optic API. And before that, I was a business consultant working with enterprise organizations, kind of changing the way that they approach technology.
And I'm Damon Feldman. I'm in our consulting organization. I'm a solutions director there. And I've been building these systems for 10 years. I've been with MarkLogic for a long time and have seen the patterns emerge. And I'm going to tell you as much of what I know as I can in a few minutes here. So with that, it's pretty loud. This is our pictures, but we're already up here, so it's okay, right? So the first thing I want to say is we're still doing the same thing. We're integrating data from silos. MarkLogic is the best database in the world at integrating data from silos. And one of the things that we're doing there is we're taking possibly the same, not the same record, but information about the same entity from multiple places. Maybe Bob Jones from 3 different places, trying to figure out that Bob Jones and Robert Jones and Bobby Jones are all the same person, put them into that one 360-degree master record, and then merge it together. So matching and merging is something that we're just doing all the time, and we're finally distilling that information into an actual tool so that we can give it to you in an easier way. And then we're also an unusually good search and discovery platform, right? We've got the search indexes and the facets and all that kind of thing. So you can then also find that, see what's working, see what's not working, review it, and when Casey shows you the actual product, you'll see that, right? How that actually works to see, oh, hey, this is the same, this isn't the same. What are we going to do here? And then refine the rules and make it better and better. Yeah. So very generally, why do MDM? How many people here do MDM in their past or in their current work? All right, so this is an MDM crowd, so I don't have to tell everybody, but here's some data from an oil and gas customer. It's not actual data, but it's not that far off, where we've got some valves, pressure sensor valves on the left. The naming's a little bit varied, right, but it's pretty close. We've got some locations, also North Sea, a little bit varied, and they have some inspection failures, right? Maybe 2 or 3 isn't so bad. But if you want to report on those and you want valid reporting, you need to know that, oh, that's actually the same valve. There's 7 failures. That's a little worse. So just to have a valid report, you need some kind of mastering. Beyond that, as we made that one record, well, 2 out of the 3 agree on the name of the oil rig and the name of the valve, and maybe that fits the naming standard for the company. So that's the preferred value. Okay, so we're going to elevate that value and clean up the data as we also bring it together into one set. And then finally, type 4 pressure, this kind of valve fails when it gets cold, right? That's predictive analytics. We're predicting that valve is going to fail in the North Sea, but maybe not in Venezuela. So I like to say as often as I can, so I'll say it now, more data beats a better algorithm most of the time. If you can get the data together into one place, use that to increase the data quality, and then run your machine learning and your artificial intelligence or predictive analytics, you're going to get a better result. So all these reasons generally are good MDM things. And now I'll talk about what we do and the patterns that we're extracting. So here's a very concrete example. I like to get concrete. Here's a couple person records in JSON. Bob McDougall, Robert MacDougall, same phone number, same city, same zip, different favorite pet. So is this the same person? Vote. Who thinks it is? Who thinks it isn't? OK. I don't really know. But if I were to guess, I would say it is. Because the phone number is really pretty specific. Now, there are some corner cases where it's not. The names are similar, right? So how might we figure that out? Well, what we have found works really well with MarkLogic is to use the scoring built into our indexes. Hopefully, people have used MarkLogic a lot. You know that we have scored indexes so that we don't have to sort of query and churn to find solutions. And we might say if the first name matches, that's a 15-point boost, 20 for the last name, 4 for the zip, 2 for the city, right? Why less for the city? Because there's many zips in a city. The zip is more specific than a city. And then phone numbers are really quite specific. Want to get a nice boost for that. So that might be how we figure out the first pass of, is this the same person? And then we might look at it and say, wait a minute, the 15, we're going to take it down to 5 because it's a nickname match, not a full name, not an exact match. The McDougall metaphone algorithm says that those sound really similar, and the Levenstein distance is 1, so that's really similar. So we'll just take that down. We'll leave it as a partial match, but we'll take it down to a lower score. And then the zip would be low because if two people live in the same zip code, it's not that likely they're the same person. If they have the same name, it's a lot more likely, right? So low score for that, and the phone number's high. Now, notice I took Laguna Beach in this example down to 0, because once you know the zip matched, it's really redundant to say that the city matched. If the zip wasn't there, then the city would be important. So this is a little score adjustment that we also apply. So the overall process that algorithm fits into, that matching algorithm, is the data hub pattern. This isn't our usual data hub graphic, but the steps are familiar, right? We have the ingesting the data, and then you discover it. You can load it without knowing what it is. Do a little bit of modeling in an agile way, so you don't have to do big modeling up front and wait for your data architects to all agree, and then harmonize it. And then in that harmonization process, you might have some customized processing. That's where the matching and merging is going to happen, and then operationalize that. So, I mean, the cool thing, and this is really great about this smart mastering, you can actually just install it, set a few weights, throw people into it, and Google all of your customers in your organization no matter where they are in any database. That's really cool. If you have somebody who wants to be forgotten, right to be forgotten, and you Google their social, you're going to see everywhere that they exist. Just like that, right? And we're all used to Google, and the people who we're training are used to Google. So a lot of it, at the end of the day, it's all to operationalize it in some way. Now, in that customized process, what we're going to do is match and merge. And what we found is we're using MarkLogic for this mastering purpose all the time because we have to. We're still doing the same thing. We're integrating data from silos into data hubs with a 360-degree view of the record, the person, the piece of equipment, the chemical, the drug, whatever it is, the product. So as we do that, we have to match things up. We have to figure out that this hospital with this name and this hospital with a little bit of a funny name, that's actually the same hospital, and match that up. The way we do that is we start with the weighted scoring per field, and then we scale it back a little bit. The weighted scoring casts the net of what candidates to check, and then we scale back to say, hey, wait a minute, I already matched zip code. I don't need to double count the city. Or there's other places where we might make an adjustment. And I haven't talked about this yet, but there's also rules-based merging. So that matching is based on scores and these little rules, and they're all configurable. Also, the merging is configurable. For the phone number, how do you merge it? For the address, how do you merge it? For the name, how do you merge it? If we know that Robert is the full name for Bob, maybe we keep Robert. And we keep it all. But we might prefer Robert. And then that feedback loop, right? Feed it back in. So all kinds of good things. We talked about BI and reporting. That's one thing that you can do if you have better data, 360-degree view, cleaner data. Also implicitly talked about the fact we're still creating the 360-degree record, integrating data from silos. That's our core thing. Over here on the left, the search and discovery. Ability to Google search. I mean, we don't use Google, we're MarkLogic. But to just do a search on all of the people in your entire organization, no matter where they came from. Really powerful. And then at the bottom here, less obvious but really important. We're still using the data hub. It's all built on top of the data hub framework. And we've still got security. So the more people that you can direct at MarkLogic with policy-based governed security, the better your security profile. Even if you have those other systems that are less secure, if you can get 90% of your people to only have a login on the secure system, you've really improved your security profile. In contrast to MDM, you install a new MDM, it's a separate system, you have one more silo to deal with, one more security risk. So we've emerged these practices from a bunch of customers. I worked at Healthcaregov a little. I'll talk about that later as a use case. There, we really refined this score-based approach because performance was key, right? They have 6,500 transactions per second on the peak day at the last day of the open enrollment period, and many of those, certainly hundreds, maybe 1,000 per second, are MDM updates and queries. So we're simultaneously having all these people stream into the system and get merged in to their MDM record and querying it in a fuzzy way to see if they exist, so that in real time, as soon as I say, I'm Damon Feldman, I live in Reston, Virginia, it can say, wait a minute, I know who you are. This is your record. I need a little more info from that. But I don't want you to reapply and duplicate. So we catch that in real time. In the intelligence community, that sort of little icon there is represents all of our intelligence customers who are not so much interested in performance in the same way. Because fortunately, we don't have 1,000 terrorists showing up on the radar every second, right? But they're really interested in provenance. They really want to know, I think this guy is a member of Al-Qaeda because so-and-so in this little town in Uzbekistan said so. Is that guy reliable? A year later, you can find out he's not reliable. You have to know where that came from. Criminal records, somebody could have arrest records, domestic violence thing where they can't have a firearm, court records, get all that data together to understand the suspect or the person in the system. And then health and human services, a variety of health and human services, state agencies where people have colloquially food stamps and welfare, right? TANF, AFDC, home energy assistance, all these programs being kind of pulled together, including things like refugee and asylee programs where somebody doesn't have a social, makes it a little harder. So we emerged this over time. And we do better than most people. For some reason, and here's some of the reasons, MDM fails a lot. In fact, the statistics that our advisors tell us is 76% of the time MDM is a failure. And some of the reasons are same reasons other things fail when you're trying to integrate a bunch of data from different places and put it in one format. That modeling and translation process is fragile. Another reason is that without our score-based indexes to do things in a scalable way, if you want to find all the people in a zip code, you actually have to load up all those rows in that zip code and scan through them. That adds a very high performance overhead. We are very strong in provenance, and this is a general thing, not just MDM. Without data lineage and data provenance, you don't have data trust. So show of hands, anybody here allergic to penicillin? Yeah. So when your doctor or some ER person pulls up your medical record and it says, Jane Smith is not allergic to penicillin, should he or she trust that record? In your case, no, right? Maybe one time when you were going to camp when you were 12, you said not allergic to anything, but you are. So if, however, that record came from an allergist 3 weeks ago, it's probably a good record. So where the data came from, who says it, and how to check it is really important to trust the data. Just talking to somebody earlier today in an expert one-on-one, they've done so much ETL to their data that people are now looking at the data and they're like, how many transforms did that go through, and can I really rely on this? So we keep all that history, provenance, or data lineage, the same term. MDM tends to be a big, I want to sell you a huge amount of software, re-engineer your entire business. It's going to take 3 years. It's going to cost all this money, and I have an army of consultants. We really just want to integrate the data into a 360-degree record to operationalize the data for your business and make your enterprise work. So we have a narrow focus, and we're a little lighter and faster. And then, of course, security is a big thing with us. So is there something better? Yeah. It's kind of a rhetorical question, right? Smart mastering. So we're built on top of the data hub. We have built this on top of the data hub, so you get that fast integration, so you can get the data in there so it can be matched and merged. We have a technique of we match it on the harmonized record. So if you have 15 sources, you don't have 15 sets of match rules and 15 sets of merge rules. We get it into the harmonized format, and then we can do it all in one place. And we cover the 360-degree record. We have this large, expansive record of the person and everything about them. Right? In insurance, it would be the person and all of their claims and all of their providers. Right? Whereas an MDM system is very targeted, very narrow, typically one big table, right, with a bunch of rows. We handle a broader data set, and again, more data beats a better algorithm, so that's more useful without the data integration overhead of dealing with your operational system here, and your MDM system there, and your data warehouse over here, and your Hadoop analytic playground over there, and trying to keep that all pulled together. The provenance and lineage and the security, that's a theme. Okay, and Casey's going to actually show you this. I'm just talking about it, right? So let's speak a little bit about a few use cases before we switch over to the demo. One is healthcare.gov. Let me just check on time, where we developed some of that performance-oriented scoring, right? Their use case is that you can apply for insurance, and then 6 hours later, your parent could put you on as an adult child up to age 26. And then if you go and apply for Medicaid, or you applied for Medicaid yesterday and you got denied, your state Medicaid agency will transfer your record over because you make too much money, so you have to go to healthcare.gov. And then next year, you do all those things over again. You've got all these records for the same person. You can also be part of somebody's Medicaid or financial household who's a non-covered member that affects the finances. We have a lot of places you can show up. We want to get that one record for you. There, we're not pulling all the data out into one place. We're really doing the matching to give a unique ID that joins together all the different places you might appear on applications. And then, really cool thing, we built this super fast scoring algorithm to find the most likely match based on data. We also use that for the customer service people to type in your data. Hey, this is Jim Smith from California. A lot of Jim Smiths in California. What's your zip code? Type that in. Okay, now I've only got 15 people. What street are you on? You can just scan down the list and say, oh, yeah, Elm Street. I see who you are. Could you confirm your phone number, please? And they can find people quickly using the weights and scores to drive searching as well as merging. Yeah, and we learned about speed there. For oil and gas, here's an oil rig. Every pipe in there has to be inspected and checked. Some of them are a lot more dangerous than others. There are risk reports on every valve and tank and holding vessel, and there are inspection schedules, and there are results, and there are work orders, and there are other things. Some of them are textual write-ups. And we have to pull all that together, and I showed earlier, sometimes the valve names may not line up, or there might be some differences. So we got to get all that into one system to help with safety, right? And a lesson learned there is our data hub capability actually helps with mastering, because as we harmonize and clean the data a little bit, it's a lot easier to do the matches. So the mastering capability is certainly helping us build our hubs, but our ability to do hubs is also enabling our ability to do smart mastering. This is a different kind of use case. Here, I worked with an insurance company who already had MDM. They were one of the 24% that was successful. They had a big MDM, cost them a lot of money. They were happy enough with it, and they certainly weren't looking to replace it as part of our work. So we had to figure out how to use their MDM to drive our process. So here we've got our usual thing, right? A couple raw records, I think what we call this now as-is data, being put into a harmonized record, which we're tending to call curated data now, right? As-is to curated. And we're going to merge those together. But how do we know those two go together? They're from different systems, and they have different IDs. Well, we pull the master data in as another data silo, and then we use the IDs in the master record to drive the joining of the raw into the harmonized. So this is just a different pattern, and I just wanted to not give the impression that we're not delighted to work with your existing MDM, but we can also build you our smart mastering capability if you want. Okay, so how does this work in terms of sort of the data flow? Probably cover this implicitly, but you've got a bunch of your raw records going into harmonize, so you've got a data hub cooking, and then as it comes in, either before you store it or in another process right after, and when Casey shows it, she's going to show you a secondary process right after, you match the harmonized record to other things that it might actually be a part of. Right? The new Bob Jones record comes in, and you've got the Robert Jones master record. You've had it for a year, and Bob Jones's traffic ticket comes in. Well, you want to merge that traffic ticket report into his master record. So you have to find it and match it. And once you match it, you apply the merge rules, and you merge it in. And there's thresholds for that. You don't have to do anything automatic. You could do a lot automatic, or you could have a really high, 99 threshold, and just do really solid matches automatic. Depends on the business case. And of course, we keep the history and lineage. So you might say, oh, Robert's a better name than Bob because of the nickname database, right? So I'm going to use Robert as the thing I'll show on the reports, the thing I'll show on the search screens, but I'm not going to throw away the fact that it's Bob. I might keep that in the actual master record as an alias, or I might push it down into the history document, but I'm going to keep it. And then the human can come in and do comparisons and either on a record-by-record basis fix things and straighten things out, or see, oh, hey, wow, not doing well with nicknames. Maybe it's because I have a huge Filipino population in this area, and I don't have a good Filipino nickname database. So I got to straighten that out, right? And then you can refine the system that way. And of course, API first. Everything we do is to expose APIs and make your enterprise better. We're not really about the GUIs so much. We're going to show you something with screens, but our purpose is to enable your enterprise to be more efficient. And with that, I'm going to switch it over to Casey.
Great, thank you. So as Damon mentioned, I kind of get to do the fun part because I get to stand up here and show it actually working. But as Damon mentioned, what's really cool about this feature is that many of our customers are already doing this. Many of you might already be doing some of that matching and merging. And so what we get to do as a product team is actually kind of encapsulate those patterns, put them into APIs, package it up. Again, all of that search DNA that's part of MarkLogic's core server, packaging that up and making it accessible to you. So today we're going to look at a new feature, and that is smart mastering. It's part of an operational data hub. It's not a separate solution. This isn't MDM. This is a feature that you need as you're bringing together data from silos, because you have real-world concepts that are very complex. They're hierarchical. One piece of data doesn't necessarily encapsulate everything about a human person. And so smart mastering lets you kind of marry that conceptual understanding with the physical data that you have. So this is an extensible framework. It's configuration driven. And I'm going to show you kind of the pieces. It gets smarter as you go deeper into the stack. So today, we're going to look at a visual interface. So this is going to be the no-code way of interacting with matching and merging. And this is just one sample application. The core is really these smart mastering APIs. And today that's a set of XQuery libraries and a REST service layer that you can plug into your application. And what those APIs are doing are exposing the built-in database intelligence that does that fast index resolution, weighted scoring, and the transactional updates as you actually want to merge the records. So doing all of that data and serving it up for any of your applications that are accessing the hub all in one solution. So it's that integrated approach. So what are the other characteristics that are really exciting and really powerful about smart mastering? Well, one is that it's smart. As the CEO of Tesla mentioned recently, organizations don't want full automation. And so the smart mastering approach is to use database intelligence to automate the mechanical parts, the really known, well-understood, definitive matches above a particular threshold that you set for your business. And what you do with the rest of it is you take all of that context, all of that data that Damon mentioned. If you have claims history and you have insurance policies, applications, you have different CRM data, you can look at all of that and let the human make the decision based on all of that real-world context in one place. And that kind of pairs really well with the other aspect of smart mastering, and the fact that when you have all that context, it builds your confidence and trust in the process. So this is not a black box. Like I said, it's configuration driven. You can understand the rules and how they're being applied. But the other part that gives you trust in this process is that lineage. We keep all of the data. So you're going to see when I show the demo here that we look at all of the data and we kind of pick the preferred or the authoritative data source. In many MDM solutions, this is called survivorship, but that kind of implies that you're leaving some data behind. And with smart mastering, we don't do that. We keep all of the data because we think there's value in understanding what that version was at one time. That may become useful when someone's trying to unwind why that was made. And as Damon also mentioned, in certain contexts, that metadata and having why you made that decision as a part of the record and that's equally searchable with the data is really important. And that kind of goes back to the flexible document structure that we can put all of that information, keep it together. All right, so the demo. I'm going to show you an eligibility scenario. And eligibility is a really common use case across verticals. We see that in banks. You want to see if a customer is eligible to have an account. In an employee hub, you might have all of the HR data and you need to make a determination whether this employee is eligible for a promotion or to be security clearance, something like that. And so today it is an insurance customer. And what happens is the marketing department has decided they want to do a promotion. And they want to offer some of the best customers a particular deal on a car insurance policy. But they have some business logic, and they've come to us. We have a data hub in place, and we're the only place where they can actually get access to all this information to decide, does this person have a good driving record? Have they been a good customer in good standing with us for a long time? Have they made a lot of claims, maybe for their household policy or other parts of our business? We have a lot of affiliates. We have a lot of affiliate databases in here. So we're going to take a look at 2 of these customers and see how that answer changes over time as we run mastering. Okay, so I have a data hub, and if you're not familiar with the data hub framework, this is the UI that we use for development to get people started. So we're going to focus on the left side here first. We already have 6,000 documents in our data hub. So like I mentioned, it's got a lot of different data that's unstructured, claims, transactions, policy documents. But what we're going to focus on for the smart mastering are these 2,000 records that have been harmonized and represent customer entities. So we're going to be mastering this set of customer entities. We've got 2,000 to start with. And as I mentioned, one of our customers is a Mr. Pollock. So I'm going to pull him up and look at his record and just see. Okay, so we have William Pollock, who's in Baltimore, Maryland. We also have a Billy Pollock in Baltimore, Maryland. Looks like it might be similar. I understand right now, based on what I have, that it's William Pollock. So let's take a look at that record. I can see this has actually come from Oracle. If I check the lineage here, this was harmonized into the data hub. So some of those source system specific field names have already been harmonized to my entity model, and so I have some common stats here. I want to key in on the case start date. So he's been a customer since 2012, 5 or 6 years. That's good, but the marketing department's really looking for customers where we have a longer track record. So in insurance, 5 years is maybe not enough time to really understand if that's a good and worthy customer. So we need some more information. We're going to see how that changes. And so the way we've implemented smart mastering for this demo is we've actually created a harmonization flow. So Data Hub Framework gives you these flows to move data from the staging area to your final area. It lets you apply transforms and do this curation process. Smart mastering is just another one of those flows. So this harmonization process, or this mastering process, is going to run on those 2,000 documents that I mentioned. And while that's running, I just want to put this into context really quickly in terms of the operational data hub and show you where that fits. So the common picture from this morning and smart mastering, as Joe talked about, is right here in the center. So this is kind of a core part of our curation process to enable those better insights. Okay, so let's see the result of our smart mastering job. So if I go back to the dashboard here, you can see that the candidate documents, it was 2010 documents. Now we have 2006 unique entities. So this is what's been mastered. Of these 2006, 4 of them represent unified records or merged documents. So what happened, there was 8 that overlapped. It's come down to 4. I've also got 2 notifications. So that's kind of bringing in that human element of maybe we weren't quite sure enough based on the algorithms, based on the data. So we'll look into those as well. So let's first check on this Mr. Pollock. So if I pull him up now, we've got 1 record. So we've got a unified record. I can look in here and see how that answer about his eligibility for this deal has changed. So a few things to point out here. So this image up here on the left, right now it's representing that preferred or our best version of the data right now. So as we know it, that's what we have, based on our rules in place, what the data we would want to serve out to our APIs. What we have access to on the right here, you actually have direct access to these source records. So I actually have a record I can tell from the URI here. There's an Oracle record. There's a CRM record. And the other thing I want to point out is that you can see here from the URI, except for those people in the back, you cannot see it, but it's, these are XML. These are both XML records. And throughout this process, I'm actually not concerned with how that data is serialized. The physical representation, this could be in JSON, this could be in XML, that's actually not important. The mastering and merging capability really operates on the level of entities and their relationship to the business world. Okay, so I have access to those sources. And then what I want to show here is a little bit of visual to show you how the mastered record came to be. So this is actually something you read from right to left. You start on the right side. You see all of our good pieces of data that we're promoting, that we're elevating, that we're going to actually serve out to the API. And you can see where they came from. So we have 2 different sources here that are contributing. Our Oracle record is contributing more of the data pieces, and that kind of fits this scenario. Maybe this is our more trusted kind of operational database, operational applications where the customers may be calling in more frequently. We can trust this source more. So some of the other rules in place. So you can see the name that came over was William Pollock. So we had Billy Pollock. And the name that the rule that we have in place here is actually to prefer the longer name. So that's one thing that you can use, is maybe to prefer length. Because again, maybe more data is better data. So that's what we have in place for the name. Maybe for something else like case amount, we're actually bringing over both. So we didn't know which one was the right case amount. Maybe each source system has a different definition of case amount. Maybe they're both valid, so we brought them all over. So we actually have the ability to set a max values for each field. So some fields you may want to bring everything over. And again, back to API first, if that piece of data is not needed to make the decision at hand, we don't need to spend the time pursuing a golden record. So getting to a golden record is not the goal of smart mastering. Being able to have good data for your current APIs is the objective of smart mastering. And then some of the other things, so you can see address was corroborated by both sources, as was person identification. So that was probably what was driving the definitive match, because we had very good confidence it's the same person if we have the same address, the same personal ID number. Okay, so the other thing that I want to show are these candidate matches that were not automatically merged. So I have some notifications built in here. So again, for each of your thresholds, you can determine what the action is going to be based on the scoring threshold. So we have Lillian was our other customer, so we're going to dig into this one and look at this one. And this is where the humans, so the people who are closer to the data, this might be someone in your business, it might be someone on your IT team that knows the data and can actually make that determination. So we're comparing the entities. Again, because it's in a harmonized format, I can actually kind of do this apples to apples comparison, looking at the properties. I'm seeing a lot of red. I'm seeing like, this really does not look like the same person. And that's kind of what it looked like to the scoring algorithm as well, because it saw there's a different address, there's a different first name, there's maybe partial data. This one has a person's sex, this one doesn't. But as a human, I know that Lily and Lillian, okay, that's probably a nickname. That makes a lot of sense. And actually, the only thing that's kind of really conflicting is the address. So it's very likely this is the same person, and they've just moved, or they maybe have a second home. And so I could update the algorithm so that this person doesn't show up in my queue again. Maybe I need to account for moves. But maybe in your business, moves aren't that common. Someone moving from Massachusetts to DC, and they'd still be in your jurisdiction, maybe you wouldn't know that. So I'm not going to update the algorithm for now. I'm going to say this is a one-off. But I am going to, kind of right from this console, be able to merge them. OK, so now I have a unified record. So all that logic was applied. If I go back here, I can search for Lillian and see that there's one record. But what if Lillian had submitted a withdrawal of consent form to say, any of my data that was captured by your CRM system, I don't want you to use that in any kind of sales capacity. I've said as an individual, I don't want you to use my personal information and share that with the rest of your business. And so you've been given this request. You need to unwind all of those complex processes that you used to merge and create this record. But actually, with smart mastering, that's very easy because we save all of the data. And so unwinding that is just this button here, unmerge. It's an unmerge API. And I can see we still have Lily and Lillian. We still have both the CRM concept of Lily, and we have the Oracle concept of Lillian. In fact, if I drill in here, I can see the full history. There was a harmonization process on each of the original records. There was a merge. We rolled that back. We unmerged. And we have one single record now. OK, so I'm going to unwind a little bit more underneath the feature here so you understand what the pieces are and how these work together. So as I mentioned before, we put some GUIs together, and that's available as a GitHub project as well to actually surface the capability. But kind of the key part starts here with the match and merge configuration and down. And so I'm going to show you a couple of the scoring rules and thresholds so you can see how this really is a declarative rule-based feature. So the harmonized flow that we talked about, I put that into the operational data hub, into the data hub framework, to do that orchestration of calling the match and merge APIs. That can be implemented in your project as it makes sense. So if that should be done on ingest, that's something we can evaluate as you bring data into the hub. If you want to run it as a batch process, that works too. And then, as I mentioned, there's these built-in APIs that are right now xQuery libraries and a REST service layer. And I think the other key point I just want to make here is that a lot of flexibility in this for custom functions. So you might have specific rules to your business that you want to put here. So I don't have time to walk through all of these rules, but I just wanted to give you a glimpse. These are the matching configuration. You can see there's different weights here based on kind of the business logic that Damon laid out for you. Again, back to what MarkLogic already has built in. This double metaphone capability is very easy for us to match in our indexes, as are the thesaurus expansion. This is, again, something very common. We're very used to importing thesauri and scoring them as a part of data retrieval. And then here's a merge rule. Again, we've got that preference for the zip +4, zip code +4. It's probably more likely to be accurate than maybe just a 5-digit zip code. So that would be the one that we'd want to bring over and promote as the most trusted data element. So just to recap, smart mastering is a lightweight, fast feature that is part of an operational data hub. It's integrated to the process. It goes really lockstep as you're doing data integration. This project is available right now on GitHub. It's open development. We're actively pursuing the roadmaps. You're going to see a lot of change in this area and more investment from us in a release soon. So that's all the time that we have. We do have time for questions, and there is a microphone. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and wait till the microphone gets to you. And we've got some in the front whenever you're done back there.
Yep. Just a quick question about how do you take care of the precedence matrix in terms of data coming from multiple sources, when you unify them with multiple rules applied, you still have probably some human intervention needed, or based on different rules, it may probably not fit in very well to unify that record. So how do we take care of the precedence matrix?
Oh, there we go. I think you're asking, some systems are more reliable than others, and how do we use the better value?
Yeah, or maybe one system may have precedence, may have to take precedence over the other for data accuracy.
Yeah, so the quality of the data source is one of those configurable attributes that you could put into your merge algorithm. So you could say something like, my Oracle source is more trusted, so you should prefer that. Or in this example Damon gave, if you have an external MDM, that may be the ruler over all of the other systems. So if something's different, or maybe it matches, but it's off by 1, then prefer this other source. So that would be something that you could set.
And I'll add, we didn't really cover it, but Casey pointed to some of those rules, like prefer longer, so the zip +4 takes over the zip. There's also an ability to plug in any function you want and just write a little function to figure out which one's best. So we have some out of the box, and that exact same mechanism, you can plug in your own functions to figure out which one to use.
Okay, they have some in the front, yeah.
This is such a long room. It's like giving a little presentation in a bowling alley.
Thanks. I'm curious if there's any prerequisites or other products or tools that MarkLogic provides that this relies on. Does it require entity services or anything like that, or is it just kind of open?
No, like
API?
I said, it's a lot of encapsulating what you can already do today. So it's constructing a weighted query. And so you could actually build that weighted query yourself today without smart mastering. But what we're doing is just kind of packaging that into an API, so you can just declare your weights and then call that API to apply the matching.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Oh, right here. He also didn't, yeah.
The GUI right now is notoriously slow.
For the Data Hub framework or for another part of the product?
Well, the Data Hub framework. But you've built a lot of GUIs into this for this smart mastering. Is this something you'd actually want to use in a production environment? To do
No,
MDM?
the Quick Start GUI is really meant for development purposes to get kind of started. The way customers usually deploy the Data Hub framework, for example, in production systems is through the Gradle tasks and through the Java libraries. So this, at least for right now, is similar, that this was more of a demo tool and kind of a development. Like I said, you might want to expose these capabilities in existing GUI that you have.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the API first, or the API-centric. It's very much an enterprise technology. So let's say you're doing people. We've talked a lot about people. If you have a person master, you might use that to do fraud detection for a fraud detection app. We have a customer who's using it so that every time somebody enters a new person, as they type, all possible matches come up in real time to avoid entering more duplicates. So there's all these, a customer themselves might go find their record. So there's all kinds of services around the enterprise that might want to know who's who, how do I find them, and what's all their data, as distinct from the actual GUIs that we're not a GUI company fundamentally, right?
Hello, thank you. It was a great presentation. Quick question, while somebody is trying to set up those rules for matching, we saw one of the screenshots there. In the current state of the project or product, is it required to write some of those components to set up the rules, or is there anything available where I can drag and drop, set up some rules, walk through the business? That's the first part of the question, and I'll ask the second one also.
I'm not sure if I completely understood. So this configuration that I showed is all out on GitHub. So you could actually take this configuration that I showed as a starting point and say, yeah, I just want whatever rules you have built in. So if you have first name thesaurus expansion using an English thesaurus, yes, you can use that as part of your project. And same with the APIs, they're already set up to call that configuration document. So you could just kind of plug and play that. But more than likely you have your own complex set of rules. Like Damon was saying, you may want to plug in custom functions, your own weighting. But yeah, there's some starter out-of-the-box rules that you
Sure.
could start with.
The other part of the question is, generally, obviously, we don't expect this product to act like an MDM, but in a regular situation, if I'm trying to get, let's say, 2 source records, which we want to merge, in the beginning of the program, we can always decide source A is good at this, and I can set up some of these validation rules. That's great. But when time passes, the data, the trust ideally should come down. For example, the address today is 123 Main Street. 2 years later, the address, wherever you set up the trust, should actually come down. Is there any concept of reducing that trust and having it populate for any review during that process?
I think there might be a couple places to do that. One is that we're pretty humble about always having a backdoor to anything that's configurable. So the system, you write those configurations, the case you showed, and that configures it. And then if you have a merge rule that says, I want to prefer the latest data, but I also want to prefer this source, and maybe I want to do a little weighting, you would write that yourself, because we don't want to stop you from doing that, but we haven't thought through what all of them might be. Sure. I would have to think a little harder about how to include that in matching, which is a little different. I'm sure that would be possible too, but that's not out of the box.
Thank you.
Hi. So on one of your slides, it said that your roadmap includes making this work for entities other than people. Could you expand on that a bit? Does that mean it won't work for merging organizational identities at the moment?
Not necessarily. That's just where we've started. So it's more just about maturing the capability and kind of applying it to different use cases. I don't even think all the ones that Damon mentioned where people are doing this today are person-based. So it's certainly possible. But right now, that's just been the use case in terms of kind of maps the best in terms of no real-world person can be completely encapsulated in data. Right, yeah. So you're always going to have this mismatch between the real world and the data in terms of people, and we also have kind of this ability to use something like a personal ID or identifier to kind of bump up the scoring. But no, the framework's flexible to apply to any entities that you have.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, just wanted to understand how do we propagate these changes to the downstream system? I mean, I understand we are speaking about mastering the data, but that is within the hub. But let's say I'm a consumer and I'm trying to figure out what addresses changed today. How do I know that MarkLogic is propagating those changes downstreams? Because typical MDM tool, what they have, they also have like data steward screens where any changes which comes in gets populated onto that screen, and they govern to know whether the change is actually a human change or an error or something. So yeah. Is there something maybe in the future we can think about? Or?
Well, that's actually a great tee up for something that I forgot to promote as well. So kind of if you enjoyed this presentation about kind of improving the data quality, then you'll probably also enjoy the session tomorrow about the data governance aspects. So there is a session tomorrow at 11 on data governance. But the other question, just as far as kind of the change data capture, so how are we exporting our changes to other systems, that's something that's part of our roadmap. It's not really specific to mastering. Anything that you're doing in the data hub, any kinds of updates that we're handling, transformations and improving the data, you'd want to capture. And that's something more for our roadmap, or we can talk offline, but yeah.
So there are many customers in the industry that spend decades of their IP into this master data, modeling and logic and all that. What is the portability? How much is that? How much of that can be brought into MarkLogic? Do the companies throw away what they have done for decades, start fresh, or can they use what they have? How can they use what they have?
I think the right answer is no. Don't throw all that away. So some things are going to translate more easily than others, right? Policies and knowledge and so on will translate. I don't think many people who have something they spent 10 years on are going to go run and do this right away, right? Like my other customer who already had something. So we use what they had. If, however, you need to master some data or integrate some data, and part of it is, hey, what lines up to what? Somebody mistyped the name of this valve, or somebody has a convention of trying to embed the rig name in the middle of the valve, and that ruins the name. we'll take care of that, and we'll get all the data put into one place, again, to provide that API that enables your business. So it's a mastering function to enable the data hub to work. And then in certain cases, it is the MDM for some of our clients, but obviously it's new, so we haven't done a 10-year huge effort with anybody. At least not yet.
I'll just add, I mean, if you have an MDM solution and that's working for you, this isn't meant to replace that. So like Damon said, it's more once you're solving that next use case and you find the need for doing a mastering, you don't need to go do an MDM project up front in order to use MarkLogic. So this is about bringing that capability closer to your operational data hub for when you need it, for those use cases when you do have conflicts and overlap of entities.
I know that you talked about a couple of algorithms as part of your demo. Can you let us know on what other algorithms that are available to perform the match?
For merging or for matching?
Matching.
I can mention a couple that we've implemented. I'm not sure that they're all out of the box, but they're very easy to plug in if they're not. So one of them is correlation backoff, where a person's last name and address tend to correlate heavily. So if they both match, we actually want to reduce that score. I was actually thinking in Joe's talk earlier this morning that if we have a Joe Senior and Joe Junior at the same place, we probably want to do a backoff based on junior versus senior, because that's a case where we know that we want a high penalty even in view of a name match. We have plans and we know how to do, with some consulting engagement, things like bad data, social security number of 9999999, but not all of that is in this very first item coming out. Casey may have some plans of some more that are queued up, but I think we'll be working with you to gather those.
Okay. I think that's it. You guys ready to go gaming? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.